So, Tfue's lawyer called me a few times last week, and let's just say he is not particularly impressed with FaZe Clan's recent lawsuit against his client, Tfue. He even called parts of that lawsuit laughable, and he described it to me as an absolute gift. Ooh, that's a yikes. Now, why is he so aggro about it? Well, we're about to find out. Plus, I have a brand new statement from FaZe Clan's own CEO on their countersuit against Tfue. Okay, so a few weeks ago, we put out a video breakdown of FaZe Clan's recent lawsuit against Turner Tenney, aka Tfue, the guy who was formerly their biggest streaming star until he sued them back in May. Now, I gave you a pretty bird's eye view of the complaint, but since then I've had a little bit more time to dive into the lawsuit and some of the details surrounding it. I've gone over the complaint and compared it to FaZe Clan's previous statements, and like I said before, I've had a chance to talk to Brian Friedman, Tfue's lawyer, and spoiler alert, he is not impressed.
After I read the complaint, I actually had to check the date on the calendar because I thought it was Christmas. I thought somebody had actually given my client a present because this complaint filed in New York is an absolute gift.
So when I first read FaZe Clan's lawsuit against Tfue, I noticed a couple wonky things, some things that were inconsistent with the tweets and the videos they put out leading up to this time. But what Tfue's lawyer actually told me is those inconsistencies could actually matter, not just in the court of public opinion, but in a court of law. Now, before we get into the first point, we're gonna cover three main inconsistencies with the lawsuit versus their public communications. Namely, the idea that FaZe was, quote, blindsided by the lawsuit, which was represented to the public before they filed it, the messaging around collecting or not collecting certain revenues from Tfue, and the fact that they're allegedly suing him for causing the gamer agreement to leak. Now, before we get into that first point, I wanna say that, of course, I did contact FaZe Clan to try and get as much of their voice in this video as I could. And unfortunately, they said they're not going to do interviews around this lawsuit, but I did get a statement from their CEO, Lee Trink, pertaining to it, which I want to read part of now. FaZe Clan has tried to maintain a positive relationship with Tenney since April 2018. Tenney was 20 years old when he negotiated and signed a 3-year rookie gamer agreement with us. The relationship started off well, and under FaZe Clan's guidance, Tenney started having tremendous success in-game and otherwise. As his notoriety grew, conversations began around renegotiation. We offered several revised versions of his rookie contract in good faith while we helped build his brand and audience. Amongst the terms we offered were a 7-figure salary bonus and no revenue splits for FaZe Clan at all. He rejected every offer. Despite how we valued Tenney as one of our rising stars, it became clear that he did not want real negotiations. He simply wants to take the knowledge FaZe Clan has imparted to him and the audience we've helped him build and compete against us. Tenney is in breach of his gamer agreement. He has publicly disparaged FaZe Clan, stolen FaZe Clan's confidential information, interfered with FaZe Clan's contracts and business relationships, and advocated for others to leave and compete against our organization. Finally, Trink had this to say. We prefer not to be involved in litigation, but since we're left no choice, FaZe Clan will defend what is right and will hold Tenney accountable for his choices and actions. We'll come back to that statement a few times later, but for now, that is FaZe Clan's perspective on the lawsuit. Now on to our first inconsistency. So Ricky Banks, aka FaZe Banks, is a reported owner of FaZe Clan, and he's kind of the figurehead of the brand. When we think of FaZe Clan ownership or management, we all pretty much think of FaZe Banks. Now, right after Tfue's lawsuit against FaZe Clan was made public, Banks adopted a public-facing stance of being shocked, being blindsided, being surprised. And when I say public-facing, I'm not trying to suggest that it was strategic. I think he authentically felt that way. He said as much in his tweets and in a video entitled Dear Tfue that he released shortly after this whole thing erupted.
And I got no heads up. I got absolutely no warning of this. This is something that could have easily been handled offline. And if this was just about making even more money than you do now, then we could have gotten to that point too, dude. Like, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Now, we later learned that FaZe had been in a contract dispute with Tfue since September of 2018. FaZe Clan's lawsuit itself makes it clear that negotiations between FaZe and Tfue weren't going well for a very long time leading up to the lawsuit, saying, quote, FaZe Clan valued Tenney's contributions to the organization, so it made numerous proposals to renegotiate the gamer agreement and give Tenney the contractual right to receive more revenue. Tenney rejected rejected all of FaZe Clan's offers, end quote. In that statement from Lee Trink, which I read to you a few minutes ago, he reiterated the same point, saying that it became clear Tfue didn't want to negotiate and he just wanted to leave the brand. So if you're in a situation where you've been going back and forth with the guy over the last 6+ months, renegotiating, trying to get him new contracts, and all you've been met with is either silence or rejection, it seems strange then to come out publicly and describe your reaction to the lawsuit as a complete shock. Now, from FaZe Clan's perspective, the lawsuit also says that they had just done a brand deal with Tfue a few days before he sued them. So perhaps it's reasonable to say that that little bit of cooperation gave them some hope that the relationship could be salvaged. Speaking of brand deals, one of the more sort of obvious inconsistencies, at least when I read the lawsuit, was the language and the messaging around what revenue they're collecting from Tfue and how. The problem is this: we have this consistent messaging from all of FaZe Clan leading up to this point where they're saying we're not interested in monies or revenue directly taken from Tfue. The value that he brings to the brand comes with him just being on the brand. And that message has come through again and again and again over the last several months. Every statement FaZe has made up until this point keeps hammering home that they've collected $0 from his content, $0 from his social media channel, and just $0 from his prize winnings, and the only thing they took from him was that $60,000 figure. Lee Trink said as much in an audio video statement released in May.
Because we wanted Turner to feel that we had his back, we made the decision to not collect any money under the old agreement. Nothing from prize pool, nothing from YouTube, nothing from anything except for a couple of brand deals that he accepted that we only took 20% of. And those deals came from us to him. So it's really unfortunate that we're here at all. The relationship with Tfue was much more important than the money. We gave him so many different options that had little, or even some of them had no money going to FaZe Clan. And yet we still couldn't get a deal done. And we come to find that the reason why is he never planned on getting a deal done with us. He wanted to start a competing organization. And that's like the Lakers letting LeBron James create a competing NBA team. They would never let it happen, and we should never let that happen.
And FaZe Banks made it very clear on Twitter and elsewhere that the goal was always just to retain Tfue, to keep Tfue on FaZe Clan, and not the money directly taken from him. That messaging kind of gets blown up by this lawsuit, which is of course seeking to enforce collection of all the funds that Tfue made throughout his time on FaZe Clan, plus extra monetary damages for the alleged wrongdoings of Tfue. Tfue's lawyer sees this inconsistency as a stark contrast between what FaZe Clan represents publicly and what they represent to a court of law.
What's the truth and what's the lie? You tell your community that you told Turner that you're not intending to collect any monies under the contract. You specifically say in a tweet to the community to have the community trust your word that you are not going to collect any monies under the contract, that was never your intention, and that you specifically told Turner that, and that Turner relied on that. Yet you file a lawsuit in New York saying that not only are you intending to collect that money, but you accuse Turner of secreting away millions of dollars without telling them. Well, which is the truth? Is the truth what you represented to the community, that you never intended to collect that money under the contract? Or is the truth what you filed in a lawsuit, that you want every single dollar under that contract? The very contract that the leader of your organization, FaZe Banks, said was trash, prepared by a shit organization.
Now, in that last bit, Friedman is referring to a series of now deleted tweets from FaZe Banks where he calls Tfue's original gamer agreement, the one they're suing to enforce, quote, trash. He said in that deleted tweet, quote, "I've made the mistake of allowing shit people to run my business. We've solved those issues and are trying our best. The contract was trash. There's no denying that," end quote. In another deleted tweet, he called Tfue's contract, quote, horrible. So again, now FaZe Clan find themselves in the strange position where they are suing to enforce a contract they themselves called trash. It's not a good look. But look, did we catch FaZe Banks in some giant lie? Is he gonna go to jail for deleting these tweets? No. But what we do have to consider is how these perceived inconsistencies may affect how a judge processes and rules on this lawsuit when and if it actually gets to a court. And we'll touch on that specific point a little later in this video. But first, one more inconsistency. FaZe Clan is suing Tfue in part for directly or indirectly causing the release of his original gamer agreement. Now, we don't actually know who released the contract, although I have my suspicions, but it's a little strange, again, for FaZe Clan to attack Tfue for allegedly causing the release of the gamer agreement when FaZe Banks vowed to do exactly that many times. Just for a quick refresher, Banks said, by the way, we are indeed releasing the contract. Just got off the phone with the higher-ups and we're preparing it for you guys now. We are releasing the contract momentarily. Our legal team is preparing everything. We will release the contract with all the context in the world when we can. All of those tweets I just read were published on May 22nd. On May 23rd, a website called The Blast leaked the contract from an anonymous source. Again, Tfue's lawyer, Brian Friedman, does not mince words when it comes to how he feels about this situation.
Inconsistent, it's a lie, and it is another reason that FaZe Clan has either misrepresented something to its community or is now misrepresenting something to the court. Were you lying then, or are you lying now?
Now, of course, it needs to be said that Tfue leaking his own gamer agreement and FaZe Clan releasing it are legally probably two different things. And right now, you might be sitting there saying to yourself, well, Colin, I agree that some of the messaging seems inconsistent with the lawsuit, but are we talking about a legal argument here or a moral argument? Well, I put that exact question to Friedman because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, and I am not an expert in California or New York law. And I wasn't sure how much a bad look could actually affect a legal case like this. Now, he wasn't willing to give me his whole legal strategy, of course, but he did tell me that these kind of inconsistencies can actually negatively affect the success of a lawsuit in a court of law. Now, before we roll this clip, keep in mind that obviously Friedman is going to be likely framing these answers in a way that's beneficial to his cause. He is a lawyer out there after all, and he is trying to win his case.
What it is inconsistent. What it is a gift. And there will be a moment in time, whether it be in deposition or in trial, where FaZe will have to face the music and decide, were they lying to the community or are they lying to a court?
Okay, one last point, and it's not necessarily an inconsistency, but it's one of the most fascinating things about this case, at least from my perspective, and that is the question of where litigation for both these lawsuits should take place. Now, you guys already know that FaZe Clan sued Tfue in New York, and Tfue sued FaZe Clan in California. And we've been over the basic facts of this before. The gamer agreement says that all litigation has to take place in New York, but that clause could very well be completely unenforceable. FaZe Clan's principal business is located in California, they're incorporated in Delaware, and Tfue's from Florida, so nothing really has anything to do with New York there. Again, perhaps unsurprisingly, Friedman makes it clear that in his view, the fact that FaZe Clan filed their lawsuit in New York speaks volumes about their lack of confidence around litigation in California.
What the real fact is that FaZe Clan has asked the labor commissioner to try and delay that case, to try to avoid responsibility for violating California Talent Agency Act by operating as an unlicensed talent agency. They're trying to avoid Judgment Day in the state of California by picking a jurisdiction of New York that has nothing to do with anything other than to allow them to violate California law.
Okay, before you stop recording, I have a message for the comment section. These papers that we hold up, this is my script. This is real. We do not have a teleprompter, and I do not tape anything to the front of the camera, all right? See you next time, I guess.